Have you ever wondered why, even after decades of dedication, effort, and resilience, the body begins to whisper that something needs to change? I'm not just talking about aching joints or getting winded after a short flight of stairs. I'm talking about that strange sensation that energy no longer flows as it once did, that something inside you, once fluid and vibrant, now feels blocked. And this block doesn't just show up in your physical vitality, but in your intimacy, your connection, your sense of aliveness. Is it truly possible to restore that natural flow without resorting to aggressive treatments or artificial solutions? In Shaolin philosophy, the body is a reflection of the mind, and the mind reflects the inner flow of vital energy. Master Shi Heng Yi teaches us that when something stops circulating, be it blood, breath, or even joy, it's because blockages have formed through habits, emotions, and accumulated choices. Healing, he says, often lies in simplicity, in forgotten gestures, in humble elements, not in miracles but in applied wisdom, in returning to what is essential, with awareness, with purpose. Now imagine for a moment that baking soda, yes, that same white powder sitting quietly in your kitchen, is far more than a cleaning agent or something to make bread rise. What if this unassuming substance held a secret, a way to restore circulation, ease tension in the limbs, unblock internal flow, and most importantly, rekindle intimacy, long dimmed by the passing of years? It may sound bold, but remember, nature doesn't complicate, we do. And ancient knowledge never relies on excess, but on harmony between what is natural and what is necessary. Many believe aging equals loss of strength, of pleasure, of motivation. But Master Shi Heng Yi offers another perspective. Age is not about decline, it's about intensity. The more we mature, the more awareness we gain about what truly distances us from well-being. And it is precisely here that something as simple as baking soda, when used with the right intention, becomes a ritual of reconnection. Not a miracle, but a discipline. Not a cure, but a subtle return to what time may have quietly taken. Maybe you're tired of solutions that promise much and deliver little. Maybe frustration has taken root and convinced you that intimacy, vitality, and lightness belong only to the past. But what if I told you there is a path? Not a new one, but a return to simple wisdom, to listening to your body, to applying natural principles with mindful intent. Stay with me, because in this video, we'll uncover how a small intentional gesture with baking soda might be the first step toward a deeper transformation, inside and out. On the path of self-mastery, there comes a time when the body speaks louder than the mind. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And if you are past 60, you've likely heard those whispers growing louder. Heavy legs at night, cold hands even in the sun, a heartbeat that pounds in moments of stillness. These are not just signs of aging. They are signals, subtle messages that the life force, the natural flow of energy within, has slowed. But what if the solution didn't lie in expensive treatments or dramatic interventions? What if it began with listening, truly listening to your body's quiet requests? Shi Heng Yi teaches that when life stops flowing, it's not because the river is dry, but because it has been blocked by layers of habit, emotion, and neglect. Simplicity, he says, is where transformation hides. In a world obsessed with the complex, the most profound healing tools are often the simplest. Take baking soda, a small, unassuming white powder, often overlooked in our kitchen cupboards. In the philosophy of balance and intention, this everyday ingredient becomes a tool of purification. Internally, it acts like a gentle stream, dissolving acidic residue and allowing the blood to move freely again. Externally, it serves as a thermal activator, opening channels, dissolving stagnation, and reviving what once was numb. It is not the ingredient itself, but the awareness behind its use that turns it into medicine. Now you might wonder, what does this have to do with intimacy? Everything. Because intimacy isn't just touch, it is presence. It is the capacity to feel and be felt. And for that, blood must circulate, nerves must awaken, and the skin must remember. When circulation is poor, connection fades, not because of lack of desire, but because of a disconnection from sensation. Master Shi Heng Yi reminds us, the mind that stops feeling freezes the body, but the body that begins to feel again awakens the mind. What we are about to explore is not a secret remedy. It is a return to inner clarity through one of the most unexpected paths. Picture this: a warm foot soak infused with baking soda. The heat opens the blood vessels. The alkalinity draws out inflammation. The soles soften, the ankles release, and your breath naturally deepens. You begin to feel tingling in your legs. Not discomfort, but activation. After years of numbness, the fire returns, and with it, a sense of connection to your body, your breath, and eventually to another. Intimacy, you see, is not just a physical act. It is an energetic bridge, and the bridge cannot form if one side is asleep. This gentle practice becomes the first step toward reigniting what was never lost, only dormant. Everything begins with intention, not with urgency, not with fantasy, but with a calm, rooted presence. The use of baking soda, as you'll learn in the coming moments, is not about tricks or quick fixes. It is about restoring inner pathways, harmonizing the elements within, and releasing what has been trapped, not only in muscle, but in memory. When the body flows, emotions flow. And when emotions flow, connection becomes inevitable. As the Master says, "He who moves with awareness finds power even in stillness." You've already taken the first step. Are you ready for the next? As you allow that first ripple of awareness to settle into your body, something begins to change. Not just on the surface, but in the deep architecture of your being. The body, long forgotten or reduced to a vehicle for function, starts to reclaim its role as a sacred vessel. Shi Heng Yi often teaches that the body is not separate from the spirit. It is the canvas on which our inner life is expressed. Every pain, every sensation, every flutter of discomfort is an invitation to return home, not to a place, but to presence. And when we apply even the humblest of elements like baking soda with intention and reverence, we are not just treating symptoms. We are restoring dignity to the body that has served us quietly for decades. The foot bath is only the beginning. The ritual grows as you begin to include breath. Long, conscious inhalations that fill not only the lungs, but the forgotten spaces of your interior world. With each breath, you are not only oxygenating your blood, you are oxygenating your awareness. This is not simply self-care. This is self-realignment. As you sit with your feet submerged, you may find memories surfacing. Moments of laughter, moments of loss, even regrets you thought were buried. This is the wisdom of stillness. Shi Heng Yi says, "When the water is still, the reflection is clear." And it is in this stillness that healing begins, in the body, in the past, and in the stories you've told yourself about what is possible at your age. In time, your limbs begin to feel lighter. The stiffness that once accompanied every movement now gives way to flow. You walk not with struggle, but with grounded elegance. But perhaps most striking of all is what starts to happen in your private world, the world of closeness, intimacy, and shared presence. As the blood flows more freely, so does the sensation. The body speaks again, and with it, desire. But this desire is different. It is not the frantic hunger of youth, but the warm, pulsing curiosity of someone who knows themselves deeply. The kind of desire that comes from wholeness, not from lack. And that, Shi Heng Yi reminds us, is where true connection is born. You see, intimacy at this stage of life is not about performance. It is about presence, about entering the space between two people with no masks, no hurry, and no need to prove. When your body feels safe, when circulation returns and pain recedes, something beautiful emerges. Vulnerability without fear. To touch and be touched not only with hands, but with attention. To be seen not for what you were, but for who you are now, wise, seasoned, and profoundly alive. That is the intimacy baking soda helps unlock, not as a cure, but as a companion in the process of remembering your own capacity to feel. Before we continue, take a moment, not to rush forward, but to anchor yourself right here. If you found resonance in these words, if a part of you feels stirred by this message, then I invite you to be more than a viewer. Become part of our circle. Subscribe to this channel not because everyone says you should, but because you feel something here that speaks to your truth. And if you feel comfortable, leave a comment sharing what stirred you most. Was it a memory, a realization, a sensation you hadn't felt in years? Let this not be a monologue. Let it be a gathering of voices, a conversation of hearts. You are not alone on this path. Others walk beside you. Let us now return to the path. As circulation improves, something subtle begins to shift in the way you move through your day. Tasks that once felt draining now carry a different energy. Not youthful recklessness, but mature clarity. You become more deliberate in your gestures, more graceful in your responses. This is what Shi Heng Yi calls the integration of the body and the breath. When the blood flows freely and the breath follows, your thoughts align as well. And in this alignment, the noise quiets. The body no longer feels like a weight, but a companion. And that companionship is the root of your power, your freedom, and your joy. Some may say, but it's just baking soda. And yet, to dismiss it is to misunderstand the nature of transformation. Shi Heng Yi reminds us that what matters is not what you do, but how you do it. When you add this element to your self-care with awareness, when you breathe deeply and sit in silence during the process, you are engaging in a form of active meditation. You are no longer a bystander in your own life. You are a participant in your healing. This is not about fixing what is broken. It is about unlocking what has been forgotten. Your vitality, your sensuality, your quiet strength, all of it still lives within you. Now, imagine bringing this same energy into your relationship. How many moments have passed in recent years without true connection, not because love was gone, but because energy was lacking? When you restore your body's vitality, you don't just return to touch. You return to laughter, to shared meals, to long conversations where your eyes meet and linger. You remember what it means to be present for someone else, because you've finally become present with yourself. And that is the secret. The most profound intimacy begins not in the bedroom, but in the silence of your own breath. But this is not about returning to who you were. It's about becoming who you are now, stronger, wiser, more aware. The rituals with baking soda, whether through foot baths, warm compresses, or gentle skin applications, are simply invitations to remember, to listen, to awaken the energy that's been stored in the joints, in the belly, in the heart. This is how we age with power, not by resisting change, but by dancing with it, by letting each wrinkle be a story, each movement a meditation, and each new day a doorway to deeper feeling. As you sit with this, ask yourself, where have I been numb? Not just in my body, but in my spirit. Where have I stopped allowing myself to feel, to touch, to be touched, to desire? These questions are not meant to shame. They are meant to liberate, because the moment you ask them, you begin to unlock something ancient and alive within you. This is the path, and now we continue walking. In the quiet of this process, another transformation begins. The rebirth of trust. Trust in your body. Trust in your capacity to heal. Trust in the idea that it's not too late. Many people after 60 carry an invisible weight, the belief that certain doors are permanently closed, that pleasure, desire, and vitality are memories rather than living forces. But Master Shi Heng Yi offers a different truth. The moment you bring awareness to your breath, you bring life back to every corner of your being. This truth doesn't just apply to your mind, but to your circulation, your heart, your connection to others. Through something as simple as a mindful ritual with baking soda, you aren't just reviving your body, you're reclaiming parts of yourself that have long been silenced. And slowly, the way you relate to time begins to shift. You stop measuring your days by what hurts and start noticing what flows. Each evening, ritual becomes less about repair and more about return. The warm soak becomes a sacred space, not because of the baking soda alone, but because of the presence you bring into that space. This is what Master Heng Yi means by transformation through repetition with awareness. Every time you create that moment of stillness, your nervous system relaxes, your blood pressure softens, your digestion improves, and the tension stored in your hips, chest, or back begins to dissolve, not through force but through kindness. And then, something beautiful happens. You begin to touch differently. Whether it's the way you hold your partner's hand, the way you hug your grandchild, or the way you place your hands over your own heart. There is more presence in your touch. That presence is not something taught. It is something remembered. You remember the power of gentle touch, the healing power of warmth, the aliveness that returns when we stop rushing and start listening. Intimacy then becomes a kind of meditation, a return to the sacredness of connection, not frantic or driven, but intentional, slow, alive. And this, at this stage of life, is far more powerful than anything you knew in your youth. There is also a softness that emerges, a release of the pressure to be enough, to perform, to meet expectations. You begin to feel safe, not just with your body, but with your presence. When circulation is restored, when tension softens, the body no longer feels like a battleground. It becomes a sanctuary. You walk differently, you speak differently, you rest more deeply. And in that rest, your hormones regulate, your immune system strengthens, and your spirit opens. Not because of a pill, but because of the way you've decided to care for yourself, gently, consistently, and with reverence. So if there's still a part of you that doubts whether this process is worth it, whether something so small can bring such change, let that voice rest. Let it dissolve like the baking soda in warm water. Let the experience speak louder than the questions. Because once you feel what it's like to awaken again, to feel warmth rushing through your legs, to breathe deeply without resistance, to reach for someone's hand without shame, you'll know this isn't just about health. This is about aliveness. With each passing day of this new ritual, you may begin to notice a lightness that goes beyond the physical. That sense of heaviness, the one you couldn't quite name, begins to lift. Shi Heng Yi often says, "When the body lightens, the mind follows." And indeed, as the inflammation recedes and blood flows freely once more, your thoughts become less crowded. Your inner critic grows quiet. You no longer see yourself through the lens of decline, but through the mirror of resilience. Every soak, every breath, every moment of presence becomes a form of inner training. A preparation not just for healing, but for living deeply again. And this depth doesn't ask you to be perfect. It simply asks for honesty. Honesty about where you are, what you need, and what you've long suppressed. For many, this is the first time in years they've stopped running from their own reflection. The baking soda may be simple, but in the hands of someone awake it becomes a key that opens the doors to circulation, intimacy, digestion, sleep, and even creativity. Because when the energy flows, life flows. When you care for the vessel, the contents begin to sparkle. When you stop numbing, you start remembering who you truly are. Perhaps one day you'll share this ritual with someone you love, not as a secret, but as a gift, a partner, a friend, a child. And in sharing, you'll notice the ripple, the way care begets care, the way presence multiplies when offered without demand. Because when you awaken your own vitality, others feel it too. They see the sparkle return to your eyes, the strength in your step, the softness in your voice. This is what makes you magnetic. Not age, not appearance, but energy. And energy, as Master Shi Heng Yi teaches, is never lost. It only needs to be redirected. You don't need grand gestures. You don't need approval. You need a quiet revolution inside your own life. A decision to say, I matter enough to feel good again. Not for others, for yourself. This is not indulgence. This is discipline. Sacred, gentle discipline. The kind that transforms foot soaks into meditations, baking soda into elixirs, and silence into symphonies. You're not fixing your body. You're loving it. You're not trying to relive your youth. You're rewriting your future. One warm bath at a time. One conscious breath. One new morning. So as we close this chapter and prepare for the next, let this truth echo. The smallest things, done with deep awareness, hold the greatest power. You've come this far not because you followed a trend, but because something inside you knew it was time. Time to feel, time to awaken, time to touch and be touched again, not with fear, but with freedom. The journey has only begun, and you, my friend, are not late. You're perfectly on time. The deeper you move into this ritual, the more you begin to notice that healing is not always loud. Sometimes it's as soft as warm water on tired feet, as quiet as a sigh escaping your chest after years of tension. The world often teaches us that transformation must be dramatic, drastic diets, painful exercises, extreme changes. But Shi Heng Yi shows us the opposite, that true transformation is subtle, almost invisible at first. It happens in the pauses, in the way you now greet yourself in the mirror, not with judgment, but with gentle curiosity. It happens in how you walk, no longer dragging history with every step, but moving with presence, grounded in the now. And it begins to extend into your relationships. When your body softens, your voice follows. Conversations that once felt like battlegrounds now become places of honesty. You no longer speak just to be heard. You listen to feel. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. Because when blood flows freely, so does compassion. When tension leaves the body, resentment often follows. And what's left is space. Space to hold others. Space to forgive. Space to be intimate again. Not just sexually, but emotionally. This is the intimacy you've been longing for. The one built not on urgency, but on safety. You see, when we speak of intimacy after 60, we are not speaking of reviving an old version of ourselves. We are speaking of becoming whole in a new way. A way that is slower, richer, and more meaningful. Baking soda is not magic. It is a bridge between body and soul, between disconnection and awareness, between pain and pleasure. Its alkalinity, when integrated into a conscious routine, does more than reduce inflammation. It begins to change how you inhabit your body. And once you return home to yourself, no touch feels empty. No night feels lonely. No silence feels hollow. People may ask what changed. They may see your glow, your smile. The way your energy radiates differently now. You don't have to explain. They will feel it. Because the body never lies. And a body that feels safe, that feels cared for, that feels open again. It tells a story of a person who chose to reclaim themselves, not by escaping age, but by embodying it fully, with dignity, with strength, with softness. This is the paradox Shi Heng Yi loves to share, that in surrendering, we find power. That in slowing down, we begin to flow again. So keep showing up. Keep placing your feet into that warm water. Keep breathing deeply as your skin tingles, your muscles soften, your blood remembers. Keep moving with intention, because each moment is not just a practice. It is a prayer to life, a prayer to feeling again, a prayer to being here, fully present, without needing to rush or prove anything to anyone. That is the revolution of this stage of life. And it begins not in grand gestures, but in the quiet choice to begin again. As your ritual continues, you begin to notice something unexpected. You sleep more deeply. The tossing and turning that used to haunt your nights fades, replaced by rest that feels ancient and whole. This isn't accidental. It's a sign that your nervous system is recalibrating. The baking soda, especially when used in a warm soak before bed, helps lower cortisol levels and improve pH balance. And as the body becomes less acidic, the mind becomes less agitated. Shi Heng Yi often teaches that sleep is the final exhale of the day's alignment. When we live with intention, the body no longer needs to fight during the night. It can finally rest. And when the body rests, healing accelerates. The tissues repair, the hormones balance, and the emotions, oh the emotions, they finally find their voice. It's not uncommon after several days of consistent ritual to cry unexpectedly. Not from sadness, but from release. The body speaks the language of tears. Sometimes the grief you carried for years, the grief of youth lost, of love left unspoken, of time that passed too fast, finds its way out, not through the mind, but through the skin, through breath, through warm water, through stillness. Shi Heng Yi calls this the purging of stored pain, not to be feared but welcomed. What follows is clarity. You begin to see your life with new eyes. The regrets lose their weight, the fears lose their edge, and the possibilities, they begin to glow. You may find yourself feeling inspired again, to write, to walk more, to learn something new, not because you must, but because you can. This is what freedom feels like after 60, not rebellion, but quiet liberation. A return to yourself without guilt. A reconnection to the body not as an object of performance, but as a sacred landscape, one that responds to care and blooms in the presence of love. That blooming extends to intimacy. You may find that moments of connection feel more vivid now. A kiss lingers longer, a gaze feels deeper. The desire to share space, to be close again, returns. Not like it was in youth, better, more honest, more tender, because you've done the work, you've cleared the path. You've softened what was once hard, and now you are ready not just to receive love, but to be present in it, fully, the way only someone who has truly come home to themselves can be. And perhaps that is the greatest gift of all, that in the simplicity of baking soda and breath, of water and awareness, you've uncovered something sacred, that you were never broken. You were never too late. You were simply waiting for the moment you'd finally say yes, to feeling again, to living again, to loving again. The days no longer blur into one another. There is rhythm now. And rhythm, as Shi Heng Yi teaches, is the music of presence. Each soak, each breath, each moment of silence before bed becomes a note, and the symphony of your life begins to shift from dissonance to harmony. You become the composer, the conductor, and as you raise your awareness, your body follows in tone. The digestion improves, the joints feel looser, your skin glows a little more, but more importantly, your perception changes. You stop seeing your body as something aging. You begin to see it as something awakening. Awakening comes with responsibility, not the heavy kind, but the sacred kind. The kind that reminds you this body is a temple, not because it is flawless, but because it is faithful. It has carried you through loss, through love, through silence. And now it asks not for perfection, but for partnership. This is why the ritual matters, not just as a health tool, but as an act of gratitude. Each time you care for your body, you are saying, "Thank you for not giving up on me." And in that thank you, something changes. Shame dissolves, guilt fades, pride is replaced by reverence, and that reverence extends into how you live your days. You begin to say no to what drains you, and yes to what nourishes. You create boundaries, not walls but sacred spaces. You rest when tired. You speak more truthfully. You reconnect with nature, with music, with people who see you beyond your age. Your energy becomes magnetic, not youthful, but timeless. Because vitality isn't in the number of your years, but in the quality of your presence. And presence now flows through every gesture you make. It also flows through your sensuality, the way your skin feels in sunlight, the way your body moves when no one is watching, the way you desire, not in desperation but in depth. You no longer crave intensity, you crave intimacy. And you know how to create it now, through breath, through touch, through a shared pause that speaks louder than words. This is the sensuality of maturity. A grounded, earthy, luminous form of love that cannot be replicated by youth, only earned through years of inner cultivation. You have become a student of yourself, and in this study you've discovered a universal truth, that healing is possible at any age, that intimacy is not a phase, it is a practice, that circulation, when restored with care and consciousness, does more than move blood, it moves your life forward. There comes a point in your journey when effort transforms into embodiment. What once felt like a practice, the soaking, the breathwork, the stillness, now feels like part of who you are. You are no longer trying to heal, to circulate, to reconnect. You are simply living from a place where these things happen naturally. And in that shift, you discover something beautiful. That balance is not a destination, but a rhythm. A rhythm you can return to any time you lose your way. As Shi Heng Yi teaches, discipline, when sustained with softness, becomes harmony. And you, now, are the embodiment of that harmony. In this state, even your presence affects others. Without speaking, you invite peace. Without effort, you radiate warmth, because you've returned to your source, your center, your breath. And people can feel it. Partners begin to open up. Grandchildren begin to listen more. Even strangers notice your calm. But this serenity is not fragile. It is forged. Forged through nights of self-reflection, mornings of mindful care, and moments when you chose gentleness over judgment. The world does not need louder people. It needs deeper ones. And you and your softness are becoming deeper every day. That depth reaches into your relationship with time. You stop racing. You stop regretting. You begin to feel the preciousness of the present, not just as an idea, but as a sensation. When you soak your feet, you feel the moment. When you touch someone's hand, you mean it. When you sit in silence, it feeds you. That is the richness of aging well, not having more, but feeling more. Not rushing toward the next chapter, but savoring the one you're in. And in that savoring, even baking soda becomes sacred. Even a warm towel becomes an offering. Even the simple act of touch becomes a prayer. This is what intimacy after 60 was always meant to be. Not a return to youth, but a revelation of depth. You don't need more movement. You need more meaning. You don't crave novelty. You crave authenticity. And that's exactly what this journey has offered you. The rediscovery of your senses, the rebirth of your curiosity, the reintegration of your energy. And now, when you look at yourself in the mirror, there is no shame. There is only softness and strength beneath it. Because you have remembered what the world tried to make you forget, that you are still worthy of deep, beautiful, pulsing life. Let the world chase its quick fixes and miracle cures. You have found something better, a rhythm, a practice, a path back to yourself. And it began not with a pill, not with a promise, but with a quiet ritual involving a humble white powder and a decision to finally listen. Listen to your body. Listen to your needs. Listen to your truth. That listening has changed you. And now, your story begins again. Not from the outside, but from deep within. Now you stand at a different point in your life, not higher, not lower, but more conscious. You no longer look back with bitterness or forward with anxiety. You stand where your feet are, grounded, aware, alive. The baking soda, the water, the breath, they've become more than remedies. They've become rituals, anchors, mirrors. And as Shi Heng Yi reminds us, when the mind and body move together, no effort is wasted. Every drop of intention you've poured into these practices is now returning to you as peace, as energy, as intimacy. And perhaps the most powerful realization of all is this: you never needed to be fixed. You needed to be remembered. The younger version of you, so full of longing, so unsure of your worth, you've reached back and embraced them. The older version of you, once afraid of fading away, you've proven them wrong. Not through defiance, but through presence, through rituals of love, through showing up again and again for your own body, even when the world told you it was too late. This is your quiet rebellion, one of softness, breath, and sacred repetition. That rebellion has now become a legacy, a way of being that others will notice, even if they never understand the full journey. You will walk with calm shoulders, clear eyes, and a gentle heart. You will speak not to impress, but to connect. You will love not to be filled, but to overflow. And all of it began with a moment, a decision to begin again, to honor your blood, your breath, your being. This is the mastery that Shi Heng Yi points to, not dominance, but alignment. Not control, but coherence. And you now move in that coherence. Let others rush, you will rest. Let others perform, you will embody. Let others chase youth, you will cultivate presence. And in doing so, you become magnetic, not for the world, but for yourself. You find joy in simple meals, beauty in ordinary moments, power in soft touch, and all of it becomes intimacy, not only with another, but with life itself. The breeze becomes intimate. The water becomes intimate. Your own heartbeat becomes a rhythm you've fallen back in love with. And so you arrive here, not at the end of a ritual, but at the beginning of a new way of living, not driven by fear of decline, but by the joy of rediscovery. You have walked this path with courage, with care, and with curiosity, and now your story is different. Your energy is different. Your presence is a quiet flame that lights everything around you. You are not trying to be young again. You are finally becoming fully alive. There are moments in life that do not need fireworks to be remembered. They need only a deep silence, followed by a truth that lands softly and stays. This journey has not been about a foot soak or a common kitchen ingredient. It has been about reclaiming what time, expectation, and forgetfulness slowly took from you, the sacred connection between your breath, your body, and your right to feel alive. What began with a small act of care has unfolded into a return, not to who you were, but to the person you had stopped noticing within yourself. You haven't just restored circulation, you've restored presence. And now something in you has shifted. You sense it in the way your chest expands with each breath, in how your gaze lingers a little longer, in the warmth that reaches your fingertips when you pause in silence. You realize that vitality was never about youth. It was always about flow. And flow has no age. It belongs to anyone who chooses to honor the rhythms within. Master Shi Heng Yi reminds us that a river is not strong because it fights, it is strong because it moves. And today your river flows again, gently, consistently, purposefully. In a world obsessed with speed and noise, you have discovered the power of slowness and stillness. Where others search for cures outside themselves, you turned inward and uncovered your own medicine. Where others seek to perform, you have chosen to feel. And now your body no longer whispers for help. It sings of balance, of intimacy, of peace. There is nothing missing in you. There is only more of you to be revealed. And what you've unlocked is not temporary. It is a way of being that only deepens with time, one that ripples into every area of your life, silently, like wisdom blooming. So I leave you with a truth, not to end this journey, but to deepen it. You are not here to decline, you are here to transform. You are not becoming less, you are becoming essence. And when you meet yourself there, at the edge of stillness and sensation, ask, what else within me has been waiting for my return? This is not the final step. It is the first of many quiet revolutions, ones that begin in your body, touch your spirit, and change the way you relate to every breath from here on. If this journey stirred something in you, even just a small ember, let it become a fire. Share your story in the comments. Tell us what this ritual awakened in you. If it brought you clarity, warmth, or simply a moment of pause, consider subscribing to this space, not because it's expected, but because you want to walk alongside others who also choose depth over noise. Like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to remember what it means to feel again. Because this is not just content, it is a movement, and you, now awakened, are part of it.